So, alongside vaccines and booster shots, the Prime Minister hopes to have COVID pills ready by the autumn as part of the UK's arsenal to fight against a potential third wave. What sort of antiviral drugs could these tablets be made up of? And is the autumn a realistic time frame? Dr. Janet Scott is a clinical lecturer in infectious diseases at the MRC University of Glasgow Centre for Virus Research and is involved in a trial into one potential antiviral drug. Dr. Scott, hello.
Good morning. Hello.
Morning. Thank you very much for joining me. First, tell me about this trial you're involved in and just how it's going and if the findings are promising so far.
Okay. So the trial is called GETAFIX, Glasgow Early Treatment Arm of favipiravir, and it's a trial of this an antiviral drug called favipiravir, which was first developed in Japan for use in severe influenza and has been useful in that regard, but is actually quite a broad-spectrum antiviral and has activity against a lot of different viruses, including SARS-CoV-2. So we are trialling it for, exactly as Boris Johnson said, pills that you can take at home, ideally as soon after you get symptoms as possible, with the hope that it will reduce the chance of mild disease becoming severe disease or shorten the length of disease. So that trial is open and recruiting now.
Has this ever been done before when it came to the flu?
Well, we already have a tablet that you can use for influenza, Tamiflu or oseltamivir. So yes, that has been done for flu, and again with all antiviral drugs, they all work much better if you take them early on in disease. So far, the big clinical trials have targeted more severe disease, but actually, even if you want to reduce severe disease, if you're using an antiviral, much better to start early on. If you get a cold sore, which is caused by a virus, you don't wait till it's a full-blown cold sore. You get that little cold sore cream and you stick it on as soon as you get the little tingle. And that's because that cream has got an antiviral drug in it called acyclovir, and you want to get it to work as quickly as possible before that cold sore appears. And that's true of all antiviral drugs. And COVID-19 is no different. We want to get the antiviral drugs in as quickly as possible. And that's what we're doing in Glasgow with favipiravir, and our sister trial Pioneer in London. And I see the same drug is going to be trialled by the principal trial out of Oxford. So we're all talking to each other, and there are several opportunities to actually get onto that drug in different parts of the country already.
One of the things that has really emboldened, I suppose, UK science is the rapid development of vaccines compared to previous vaccine development. Is this autumn timeline realistic for this pill?
I think it's with political will, it's realistic to get results of the clinical trials. Of course, we can't promise ahead of those results being known if there'll be positive outcomes. The results will just be what they will be. We wouldn't put it into clinical trial if we didn't think it had a reasonable chance of success. But I don't have a crystal ball, and nobody else does either. So we can't promise success, but we can promise. I think it's realistic to get some results to see whether these drugs are working or not. And it's not the only drug in the pipeline, I should say. There are several other medications on their way. So if we put a concerted effort into it, let's hope that one of them is useful.
So is this down also to investment? Is there enough investment and support in this term in terms of this?
It's down to investment, and it's down to having the political will to prioritise it. So it's not all about the money.
What Boris Johnson said yesterday, does that not indicate that there is that political will?
Yes, I hope so. Yes, and we've managed to get these trials off the ground when really we were prioritising, rightly so, vaccine trials and the more severe end of the drugs spectrum. So I think hopefully that political will be there. But you have to remember that the hospitals, we need space to see patients, for example. It's not all about the money. And at a time when hospitals are struggling just to cope with the patients that they have coming in with severe disease, getting a space to see somebody who's maybe not so severe at the earlier time frame in a safe way that isn't going to endanger staff or cause anybody to get COVID-19 as a result of being in a clinical trial, that's a challenge. But it's a challenge that we are up for, I think. As I said, it's not all about the money, but I think it's all doable.
I'm thinking about how this drug will work, just literally step by step. So say
Yes.
I feel ill. I feel fine. And then I get a couple of symptoms. Maybe a headache, maybe a bit of tightness in my chest. Nothing severe, but a bit of it. So what do I do then? I test?
Yes. So for the clinical trial, you test, and as soon as you get a positive test result, you get in touch with a clinical trial and volunteer to be part of a clinical trial. You can actually go and read about the clinical trials ahead of getting your test results so that you are aware of what they are and if it's something that you want to be involved with, so that you know whether you really want to do it or not before the test result is back. But I would advocate, if you're going to take the drugs, to get on the drugs as quickly as possible. They are much more likely to help.
So it's not lateral flow test that you'd be interested in, is it? Would it have to be PCR?
For our test, it would be a PCR. But what, of course, we're hoping, because the favipiravir is a quite well-tolerated drug. There are some indications you wouldn't want to take it, but it's generally well-tolerated. If we have a positive result from the clinical trial, I would hope it's the kind of drug that you could take, as we do with oseltamivir for flu, the moment you have symptoms, and then if your test result comes back negative, then you stop it rather than doing it the other way around. But for the clinical trial, before we know for sure if it works or not, we have to have the test first.
How long does the clinical trial have to be?
How long?
Yeah, just in terms of the validity.
You take the drug for 10 days.
No, sorry, I mean the trial, not taking the drug. The actual clinical trial itself.
The clinical trial, it's all about how many people we can test. So if we can get a lot of volunteers through quickly, then we get the results faster. That's what we did with the same as the vaccine trials. The reason they were able to do things so quickly was that so many people volunteered, and that we had the money and the logistics to test so many people so quickly. We were able to get results quickly.
Been fascinating. Thank you so much for talking to me. One of the things you may not expect to be asked as a clinical lecturer in infectious diseases at the MRC University of Glasgow Centre for Virus Research is it's a very catchy title. I'd love to see how you introduce yourself at a dinner party. About groveling, because we're talking about the Liverpool owner, John Henry, today, after the ESL European Super League fiasco. They were going to do it, and then they decided they weren't doing it, and then they said sorry to fans. And we're trying to kind of find out when people grovel. And we've pretty much established that all of our team does it every day. What about you? When you get it wrong? I mean, if you get it wrong, it's much more important.
Well, we're grovelling for money for clinical trials all the time. I'm not above a bit of grovelling to move things forward.
But you're not saying sorry, are you?
I'm not saying sorry. No, anything that it takes to move the research forward. And the other thing is that I'm actually on maternity leave, and in order to come and speak to you on the programme, there is a degree of grovelling required. I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa are listening to this, and thanks very much for doing a spot of babysitting. There's a little bit of grovelling on air. There we are.
Grandma and Grandpa Scott, I'm saying thank you for letting Dr. Janet Scott come on because it's important. She's doing important work. Thank you so much. And enjoy the maternity leave as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it possible for me just to signpost our trial to get some volunteers?
Briefly, yeah.
Right, so if you could go to our website, please, which is www.GETAFIX, like the wizard and asterisk, getafix-trial.org.uk. There's a little questionnaire there. If you're feeling a bit like you have COVID, or if you have a positive test result and you're in Glasgow, then we would be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Janet Scott, thank you very much. Thank you.